All right, I'm back. Making sure I'm streaming correctly, and let's get started. So, Ralph leaves Marion. It's been a couple hours, so I'm actually I'm a little out of it, but we'll see if I can get right back into it. Now, at this point, I do want to just double check how many pages is this. So 272 going down to, oh, that's like not an easy way of navigating. Okay, so that counts as 14 pages left. So yeah, this is pretty long. Um, and how much do we actually read? Okay, so 260. So we read 12 pages and we have 12 or 14 more pages left. So we're about halfway through. So I guess in terms of this recording, it might be about another hour. Well, let's get started. Uh, and I will try to be I will take my cues from the last time reading the first act, and I think I was just too slow, so I'm going to read a little faster this time. My my chair is very noisy. I do apologize. I'm at an Airbnb right now, so not the best, not the ideal setup. Meanwhile, doing my hair. Laughing couples. Blake's for beer. So we're really describing the scene right now. So something's gonna happen in the scene. This like sort of sucky disco light thing, and then this jukebox. Ralph Wyman. Hmm. Okay, let's see. Mr. Wyman, so former student. David Parks. Draw one. What does that mean? The glass in his hand. What does draw one mean? Charlie Blake. Hang on, this is David Parks, right? Yeah. Not like it used to be. David Parks. Huh. Watched him fill the glass. Oh, draw one. He's behind the bar. I didn't even read the. He's the bartender. Okay. The football boy is just a bartender now. Hmm. So reality is hitting this boy. Nice, nice, David Parks. Yeah, just the phone rang. Open the door to what? Not here though. So he's ignoring the phone. It's interesting. The receptionist at the children's dentist, we're sort of noting the jobs of the people here. So we're kind of zooming out a little bit from just Ralph and his little like self-torturing mentality. And we're zooming out into the sort of broader landscape of this town. Especially with the student who was a bartender. So I remember reading that first act being all intense about, like I was kind of expecting the conclusion to happen. So I was like over reading it. But now I can sort of I can relax a little bit, know that we're still building towards a conclusion. But now the question is, how are we building towards a conclusion? We're involving society in this a little bit. And so it's not just him versus his own doubts. Now it's him versus society in some way. So is he gonna like depart from society in some way? Like we'll see. He keeps walking. 8 or 10 blocks is that's a lot of walk. Impossible to get a clear look at himself, his world. Hmm. I almost want to highlight this. Uh, I mean, might as well, whatever. But like, I'm not moved by this particularly, but I get this like sense, right? He's still the rationalist. He's still trying to understand a blank space. Just these like three memories, just sort of like just hurrying into his brain. Just what happened just like an hour ago, then 2 years ago when he hit her, and then also like this moment of sexual intimacy. So his thoughts are just racing and he's sort of unhinged. He's just walking around. Wow, that's kind of shocking. Yes, there was a vast amount of evil loose in the world, he thought, and it only awaited an opportunity, the propitious moment to manifest itself. But then now there's a reversal, but that was an academic notion, a kind of retreat. He spat ahead of him on the walk and put his heel on it. Not this kind of thinking. He should start from the essentials, with the fact that his wife had let herself be fucked. Yes, fucked by another man. And this he knew was evil. He felt it in his bones. So, interesting. Interesting. The academic idea is that the world is full. The world has evil loosed upon it with these teenagers yelling and stuff. But actually, he's just trying to focus on that one act. I wonder why he's thinking about it, right? He's sort of sorting his thoughts out. But what would a normal person, like, what would we think a normal person would do? Normally, they would walk out and maybe they'd be dramatic about it. They'd be like, I divorce you, or they beat, maybe a more crude man might beat his wife. Um, like, but this one, he goes out and he's thinking about the evil. Ugh, I don't know. I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Hmm. I'm zoning out a little bit because I think I wasn't ready for these sort of random incidental details. Let me just double check what's happening here. He came to the part of town people call Two Street. There's a pier, secondhand store, there's a liquor store. So we're describing this other part of town. We're transitioning to Two Street. Liquor Street, liquor store, I mean. So we're still in his brain, but we're also in this new part of the town. Huh. What's happening? Jesus. So let me try to make a prediction at least then. Um, he wanders, and he could just like kill himself. He wanders, he meets people. These people like sort of disgust him, and then he kills himself. Or he does the Breaking Bad thing and becomes a drug manufacturer. Man, I don't know what the heck will happen. Okay, I have no clue what's gonna happen. So he's in the liquor store, right? He went to a liquor store and bought some cigarettes. Closed for the night. Sort of messy place that was dark. A gym. People swimming in a gym. Light from bars and cafes. Groups of three or four. Gray cigarette smoke. In front of a bar. Jim's Oyster House. He had never been to any of these places before. That's kind of interesting. He's in a new part of town. We kind of know he's a sort of sensitive, prickly little man. So he doesn't explore that much. So he hasn't really been out. And earlier in part one, he did say, if I wasn't married, I would. Who knows where else I would have been? But actually, he's not a very adventurous person. So this is his first time coming out to the city. another cigarette, and he goes in. The torso was hidden in the shell, and the legs flash red on and off. Such a weird little thing about this neon sign, and it's true. I wonder why we're describing it so much, huh? It's just kind of strange. It gives me this feeling of a strange place to be. It's crowded. It's crowded in an oyster house. They're bunched. So hang on, I didn't really notice the characters, but there's many characters. A drunken woman. And he had to stand at the end of the bar between a Coast Guardman and a shrunken faced man who were not speaking. So kind of awkward solo guys at the bar. These sorry guys at the bar. Hmm. I'm just thinking about how hard this will be for some of the students I'm reading, but I just got a little distracted. Let me just reread what I was. Let me just reread uh, what I sort of zoned out on. So it's sort of a seedy, it's pretty like, it's a little, it's a little grungy. It's a little, maybe not quite grimy, right? But we're not in some sort of fancy bar right now. The microphone, the audio quality is not great. There's these people arguing and stuff. So this is this man in his sort of society. He's sort of going out into the world, and maybe he's trying to do something. Maybe he's trying to cheat on his wife. It's like revenge, right? So maybe he's trying to do that. He's going out where the women are. Uh, but I suspect he's not going to actually cheat on the wife. He's going to have some sort of internal torment that keeps him from quite being successful in that. But he's in this world, not upwardly mobile. He's just sort of in his sort of lower middle class, working class world. Okay. And he's looking for his place in it. And he can't find it. So so raunchy, raunchy jokes in the toilet. Not a very classy establishment. His life was changed from tonight on. Looking at this raunchy picture, were there many other men, he wondered drunkenly, who could look at one singular event in their lives and perceive the workings of the catastrophe that hereinafter sets their lives on a different course? And then he looked down. He'd urinated on his fingers. He's drunk and he's. That's such a crazy. It's funny because this is sort of meta fiction, but we talk about how there's that one, like in a lot of fiction, there's that one moment that kind of changes everything. And in this story, we sort of question it. We sort of make fun of it a little bit because he's drunk thinking about, because it's happening to him and he's sincere about it, but he's wondering whether it's even really possible. And meanwhile, he pissed on his own hands. This is actually the funniest this whole story has been so far. Jeez. I'm actually kind of struggling to be honest, but this is the funniest we've gotten. His nose just hung there, occupying a space. Wow, that's such a crazy that's such a crazy description. There seemed nothing fixed or permanent about his face. So it's like his identity is like impermanent. His nose just hung there, occupying a space, spotted with several tiny blackheads he hadn't noticed before. His eyes, they moved as he moved, followed him around the mirror. So he's very disassociated from himself. Tries to touch it. Four card players around a green felt table. I don't know which game that is because and I don't know what Cezanne's card players refers to. Maybe Wikipedia will help, but nope. And if I actually Googled it, I could probably find it, but don't want to. That's interesting though. This did it really? So that's a whole other layer that I'm starting to unpack. One layer is this man versus his own society. Another layer is this man and his relationship to his own thoughts, of his intellectualizing, of all the literary references that he's able to make but doesn't. Hmm. I don't know what's going to happen with that. He wanted to be them. He wanted to play with his $18. He's gambling. Breathed heavily through his nose. Glared at him. Benny, bring another chair. I'll just watch a few hands. Suit yourself. Clack, clack. Small hands were white and delicate looking. We're describing his hands. Another person now. The other people. An Italian. Smoking, smoking, smoking. The Thai. Oh, the Italian is smoking. Oh, no, wait. Uh, The Italian is the one smoking, right? Okay, I did get confused for a second. Just double checking. Not important though. The old man was wiping with a cloth. I'm confused right now. Um, it's just I keep getting distracted thinking about how I'm going to teach this to far younger kids than normally read this story. But okay, gotta focus. You know what? Let me take a quick. I'm noticing I'm getting distracted multiple times, so I'm gonna pause real quick. Part of me is bored. Part of me is bored, and that's just the honest truth. I'm partly bored. Part of me is maybe tired and some other things. I found that today, all day, I sort of had like low self awareness. I just sort of like, kind of like struggled through my day today. Um, so I'm not sure which is which, okay? But what I can say is when I'm tired, when I'm reading a story, I just want to remind myself, like what is the exciting thing about this story? Like what is exciting? What is something I can look forward to, right? And movies usually do the work of trying to keep me excited. But a short story doesn't always do that for you. Um, some short stories are a little bit more uh, spicy, but this one is definitely not very spicy. Uh, you kind of have to you kind of have to dig with it. You have to kind of find the flavors. So, what is what is something that's going to keep me interested? What's keeping me interested in this story? Let me think about that real quick. Oh, okay. The first thing I confirmed, I am a little sleepy. I'm a little tired. But let's smile and find something to hold on to. Because there are a lot of things to read. I don't want to push it another day. Okay. If I had to boil it into like one sentence, it would be something like this dude's gonna go crazy. Like, he's gonna go nuts. He's gonna go nuts. Not sure how. I don't think we're gonna have something as dramatic as him killing somebody or anything like that, but he's gonna go nuts. But first, right, he's just burning and burning and burning with his wife, and then she kind of resolves that for him by telling him the truth. And now he's like unhinged. His whole life has changed, so he's gonna come out to the bar and be irresponsible. He's gonna gamble and maybe kiss a woman or something. But he's not gonna kiss a woman. He's gonna be a total loser about it, I think. And then, being this total loser and not quite, he's just a high school teacher who still has to submit some grades, and you know he has to teach class tomorrow, right? He's at the bar being irresponsible. He's gambling. His whole life is gonna change, but how? That's the crazy thing, and so that's like the human connection I'm looking for. Okay, I have successfully made myself a little more excited about this book, about this story. All right, let's do it. Let's go. Ah, let's go. Ralph wasn't sure whether it was directed at him. All right, he said. So that's that awkwardness of dealing with people, right? He's not a social butterfly. So I think he's gonna lose all the money, right? He wondered if it had ever happened to any of them. Now, if in my temptation to just sort of rush, I would have almost missed the sentence. But he's talking about them also being cheated on, becoming cuckolded. He won two hands. Huh. So he's making money. He's tired, but he felt better. A few hours ago, did he actually resolve anything? Self doubt. What's the bet, for Christ's sake? $3? In. You really want some action? We can go to my place. Huh. Enough action tonight. I just have to be going pretty soon. I just found out interesting. He gets this connection with these people around him. Okay, women are no damn good. All right. I just haven't gotten around much. He felt drained, oddly relaxed. Clyde, hold your shirt. I've never seen such cards. Who's gonna stay? Whole card. I don't know what game this is. What's a whole card? So tired. All of them radiating. Seven of clubs. An ace. He's dropping out. Benny, king, $5, more royalty. Queen of diamonds, whole card. Seven of clubs. Benny came back, closing in 10 minutes. Jack of spades. White-haired man, dealer. Toes are pulling back. Recklessly raised $5, his last chips. So he's drunk and he's losing money. He's showing. Call. Swallowed. Dealers. Ralph's. Glaring at Ralph. Watching Ralph turn over his cards and lurched up from the table. So I wasn't paying attention to the cards themselves, but he lost the money. Right. $2, some change. He can eat. So he had that little bit of excitement, that little moment of connection with some people, but then he's just tired, he's drunk, and he loses his money. Now he's gonna eat. So it's a little so far I'm on track. It's kind of sad. Uh, he's noticing this woman and man speaking while he's walking. So he's very sensitive to like men, woman, right? He's sort of sensitive to that situation. He's like a single like 20-year old out in like the city, but the way more depressed version of it. Um, I'm trying to Okay, so he's gonna go to the liquor store and he buys some alcohol. So he's a mess, man. The magazine rack. So I assume with the magazine rack, um, he's looking at adult magazines. Closing it up, buddy. Ralph is really drunk and he's like not aware of what's happening. Like when the shop is closed, he's like aware people are watching him, but he's very um, actually, now that I think about it, I've never read in fiction. I've never read a passage of the description of what it's like being drunk and just kind of sad and drunk and kind of getting through life and things not fully being aware of what's happening. But this is such an effective description. Things are just happening to him. A dark wooden building. Just dark, 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 dark. Where do you think you're going? Christ, man, that's my feature stepping on. Hit him. Okay. Hit him in the nose. Hand slipping into his pants pocket, felt his wallet slide out. Stripped his watch. Okay. Huh. He can't speak. It's either really hurt or he's scared of what's about to happen. He tried to draw a breath, piled up in his throat. Obstruction in the passage, and then the noise broke even louder through his nose and mouth. He leaned his shoulder against the doorway and wept. A vast sense of wonderment flowed through him as he thought again of Mary and why she had betrayed him, and became silent. Huh, that's a crazy sentence to stick right there. So, his something's really messed up with his face. So the air isn't coming through. And in that moment, this vast sense of wonderment flowed through him. That's pretty realistic, honestly. I can imagine that, man. Being smashed and sad. But not he's not sad in the sense of he doesn't even feel his sadness. He's sort of numb. So he went out on town. It's an abject failure, right? He fails at whatever project that was. Now he's gonna be back home, I assume, and some big change is going to happen. And he's gonna comprehend life or not comprehend life. That's sort of the conclusion I'm looking for. Okay. I want to be interested in this character. It's a little painful because I do see a lot of myself in this character. Uh, I mean, I don't think I'm this depressing, but just trying to think. What do you, what do you do with this character? You know, I don't know. I'm slogging a little, but the main thing I want to know is just he's gonna go crazy. So what's happening? A dozen of them. he remembered. So his memories are flipping around, seeing these birds, and he's thinking, he's in his brain right now. In and out of broken windows. Seems like an interesting little image to start off this part. Broken windows and these birds are flying around. Maybe that is the comprehensibility of life. Life is basically a broken house with birds flying around. I don't know. You have to be careful not to step on the snails. It's kind of gross. So he refused the cop's ride. So where was he? He's just like in this random. He's just walking. Monday morning, he has to teach his class. He couldn't think of that is pretty funny. A more shabby ending to the night than riding home in the early morning in a black and white police car. That would be pretty lame. Um, that would be pretty lame. So that's very reasonable. I Oh, and he wasn't. He went to the hospital. There was a stool. There was the table. How long ago? It's 7 a.m. So that's literally like 9 hours ago. 9:45 a.m. Right when they were fighting. P.m. when they were fighting. You could see the dining room table, flamingos, draperies. As she stood watching for him, he wishes she watched for him. Right. Her coat was thrown over the couch. I think any normal person would want her to worry, right? You made me worry. You made me go crazy. I want you to go crazy. But she will not give him that satisfaction, is my prediction. The phone directory was open. She was sleeping. On her side, her secret body slightly bent, her thighs. Pack his things now and leave, go to a hotel room. How should a man act given the circumstances? Wow. I don't know why that hits. I don't know why that hits. It just hits. That doubt, that self doubt. He's so weak. He's so weak. But what course was he to follow now? How should a man act? It kept repeating itself. But every day on this earth, he felt suddenly there was an answer. Robert and Dorothea. I totally forgotten about the children. Tell us a story, Daddy. Ralph, let me in, please, darling. Ralph, please let me in, darling. Go away, Marianne. Just let me alone a while, right? That's a little pitiful. Okay. I wonder what happens. What's he gonna do with all of this? What? All of this self-reflexive literary stuff, all of this trying to be a rational person, all of this failing to connect to the people around him. What's he gonna do with all of this? He began to unlace his shoes. I do want to know this reference. No cowardly. I don't think it's that important to know. He murdered Atreus to restore his father to power. A Aegisthus became the lover of the king's estranged Clytemnestra, and they killed Agamemnon. Oh, I see. There's no like there's no guy waiting to kill Agamemnon, him here. So there's no other man here in this bathroom. And Clytemnestra being his wife in this case. Interesting. He kind of half expected there to be a man here. Weird. But yeah, I mean, that would be so unrealistic. But yeah, that's just the kind of thoughts that I guess he has, right? Because he's so unhappy. Dropped in the plug, right? I'm assuming that's the plug to plug that, yeah. He gathered the slack flesh over his ribs, looked at himself. He started when Marion called his name. I called Vaughn Williams and said you wouldn't be in, and I'm going to stay home. Come on, darling. He looked at the bed before he crawled in. He lay on his back and stared at the ceiling. How should a man act? Probably not like this, right? A man should not. He's just sort of like simpering in his own house. Immense importance in his mind was far more crucial than the other thing. He's very philosophical. He remembered he'd just gotten up off the couch in the living room where he'd been working and come into the kitchen and sat down. So that's the memory of the night before. He snapped open his eyes and turned onto his side as Marion came into the room. She took off her robe, sat down on the edge of the bed. She began stroking the lower part of his back. Ralph. Then he relaxed. So right now I have a prediction. Okay, it could be totally wrong. I I think one way this might go is he might just accept. I think I read something on Goodreads that makes this like not true, but I don't remember exactly. But he might just be a coward. He might just be a coward. His wife is being kind. He's like, how should a man act? How should a man act? He doesn't have an answer. He's just sort of moping around. And the temptation is right there. He could just not act. He could just let it be. Just move on. But now that I say that, I think that would be too depressing to end the story that way. I think something's gonna happen. Plus, I remember reading something on Goodreads, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like something's gonna happen, something more dramatic. Come in, Ralph, come in. He kept on floating and didn't answer, and the soft, rising waves laved his body. That sort of passivity, the sort of surrender, moved over his hip, then it traced his groin before flattening itself against his stomach. Gently back and forth with him. So that's the temptation. His wife is now arousing him, and their eyes met. Okay, now I really don't know what's happening, but I'm also very awake. Her eyes are filled, layer upon layer. Oh my fucking goodness, are you serious? That's the end? Of shimmering color and reflection, thicker and more opaque farther in. It gets more and more opaque and almost transparent at the lustrous surface. Then, as he gazed even deeper, he glimpsed in first one pupil and then the other, the cameo like, perfect reflection of his own strange and familiar face. He continued to stare, marveling at the changes he dimly felt taking place inside him. Oh my god. That is such a understated story. That's way more understated than I was ready for. I still expected something to happen. I mean, nothing dramatic, but I thought something would happen. But nothing. In the sense of, well, nothing externally. So let me get my head around this, okay? That's honestly, it's a lot for me to handle. He's not gonna kill himself. He's not gonna be killed. No, he's not Agamemnon. His wife is just being supportive. He's brooding. He comes home. How should a man act? How should a man act? He has to commit to this, but he doesn't commit to anything. He has to commit to this course of action because it's irreversible, but he doesn't do anything. She just touches him, and he looks at her eyes. The same eyes that he was attracted to the very first time. And in those eyes, he doesn't see her. He sees himself. He sees one eye and then the other. The further he gets in, the more opaque it is. As in, he can't understand her. He can't penetrate that opacity. He can't understand her. All he sees in those eyes is the reflection of himself, of his own strange and familiar face. The same face that he was looking at in the same face he was looking at in the freaking bathroom of the bar slash oyster house or whatever. That face with that nose that was hanging there in the space. But now he's marveling at the changes he dimly felt taking place inside him. That is such a mindful. So understated. This is definitely the hardest short story I've recorded so far. I think I think okay, because at least I can start with some. I mean, at least I can talk about the last sentence. So there's so much I can't talk about, and I feel like with this one, I have to reread it. Like I can't do this again. I need to reread it. I don't feel like I really picked up enough along the way, and I don't think I picked up enough to even do a real good synthesis. So I'd have to reread this to kind of try, but at least I can respond to this line. He continued to stare, marveling at the changes he dimly felt taking place inside him. I think this might be the first time he feels any change. And it could be a lie, but I don't think it's a lie. I think he is changing. But the amazing thing about this change is how psychologically real it feels because there's nothing dramatic, there's no single moment that makes life comprehensible, right? There's no single moment that makes that work where he just changes, where it happens and now he's going to commit to it, in like that, maybe like in the religious way, right? Where Jesus tells Peter, follow me, drop your nets and follow me or whatever, right? So that's a dramatic change that happens in one go. You commit to it. That's your life is changed forever. I think this story is kind of about how people change, not like in those parables, like not like in the classical stories, like the heroic stories, or like the mythical stories, or like the religious stories, right? It's he changes even though nothing happens. Like he's just a sickly, weak, kind of pathetic character. He settles on teaching with like excitement, but but his father's a teacher or like an educator. And so it's kind of a cop out. And when he's there, he marries this beautiful woman, but he doubts her. He doubts her from the get-go. And he's sort of just simpering. He's simpering, and then he doesn't even bring up the conversation. It's his wife. When she's drunk, she brings up the conversation, and then he just presses, pretending to be rational, whereas his wife is the one kind of supporting him throughout the whole process. And then his rational self goes out, trying to find some decisive change in the bathroom, but all he sees is that face, that shapeless face, like a nothing looking back at him. And he just loses that money and drinks some more and gets punched in the face. His face is messed up. And now he's back. And he sees his messed up face. And he can't even talk to his wife. He can't say what he's done. He's just sad. And he's too sad to even kill himself. And there's nothing dramatic that's going to happen. He's not going to find his wife's lover in the bed. He's going to come back home. His wife's going to be supportive and regretful and loving. And he's just going to look in her eyes and not see her. He's going to see himself changing. That's a hard story. That's a hard story, but it's also a hard hitting. I mean, I think it's easier to write a story when somebody changes in one fell swoop, when there's like this big thing that happens. It's really hard to write a subtle story, but this is like one of the most subtle stories I've ever read. Uh it's hard to write this kind of thing, and it's hard to read this kind of thing because you're kind of expecting something to happen. This decisive moment. And I think that's what Raymond Carver does in this story. He gives us like a foothold, like, hey, you're kind of looking for like a decisive change, right? Right? You're looking for something to happen, right? And so he keeps doing that by having oh, I've just forgot Ralph, having Ralph look for it himself. Ralph is our stand in for the audience, constantly expecting something to happen, and nothing happens. And so he's just unsatisfied. Nothing is making him happy. So, geez, what am I supposed to do with this story? I think the best, that last sentence is just so powerful. Um, Marion isn't blameless. She isn't blameless, but we don't hate Marion, right? It's hard to hate Marion. She did something terrible, but we don't hate her because she's being honest and genuine and trying to help, and she regrets it, and she doesn't know what came over her, and she's sort of thinking about it, and yeah, and all of that. So we don't hate her, and he can't hate her. He's gonna actually accept her at the very end. So he's just so alone. Something feels so lonely. Okay. I honestly, this is hard to synthesize. It's hard for me to synthesize, but here, I'll try to just give a quick recap then. Really finalizing this, I think for you to enjoy the story, maybe some focus on um I think you have to sort of keep questioning your desire for something to happen. And you have to question it together with Ralph because Ralph wants something to happen too. He does. He wants there to be a, like his father said, something comprehensible about it. You know, he wants to be able to look out and see it in its entirety, right? He wants to be able to understand it. And so you should ally with Ralph, you know, you should notice that you are Ralph's ally or Ralph is your ally and trying to find the thing that makes the story go. But then now that we're at that level, since we're thinking about that, now you should keep asking yourself, what happens if nothing happens? You know? And I think if you kind of hold that mentality reading the story, that might help you navigate it. It is not easy. Not easy. But yeah, I think I like it. I think I like it. I think I like it. I think I say that for every story. But I think I like it. Would I reread this? Maybe. And you know what? Probably not. At least not right away. I would probably read some other Raymond Carver first before I came back to this. But I'm open to rereading it at some point in the future. All right. Well, that was Will You Please Be Quiet, Please? Oh, I didn't even mention the title. Will you please be quiet, please? Now it sounds like it's not about his wife. It sounds actually more like it's about his own mind. It's his own mind. But who knows? There's no answer to this. But he never complains to the wife. I guess that's the closest analog I can think of. Maybe there's some other interpretation. Somebody, if you have a thought, let me know. But it has to be his own mind. his own rational mind. God, what a devastating critique. Maybe this criticizes the rational mind. Oh my god, I keep talking. I keep talking. You know what? This was fun to talk about, I think. I'd love to talk about this. Tough. I'd love to talk about this and reread this and maybe some other Raymond Carver works with some people. Yeah. Jeez. Guys, that was a good read. Tough read, but rewarding. In a very understated, very subtle way. Just I think you got to really be examining your own expectations. You have to keep examining your own expectations while you read this. Try it. You've tried it with me. Try it again, and let me know how it goes. I'll see you guys in the next short story.